Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would end up here, sitting in this cold, tiny cell, wearing an orange jumpsuit, my hands cuffed. Me, David Walsh, a Harvard-educated lawyer who had it all, a beautiful family, a gorgeous house, a successful career. I helped countless impoverished people through my nonprofit work. And now, I'm being accused of embezzling millions of dollars from the very charity I worked so hard for. As I stare at these dull gray walls, I think back to how it all started. I remember kissing Lisa, my wife of 10 happy years, goodbye that sunny morning. Good luck in court today, she said cheerfully as I headed off to fight yet another case defending our charity, Helping Hands. Lisa was always my #1 supporter. We met in college. Her optimism and compassion changed my formerly workaholic ways and made me want to truly make a difference in the world. My day started well enough. I won the case as expected. Then everything changed with one phone call. The FBI wanted to speak with me. My blood ran cold. Me? Accused of stealing from the charity that I had poured my heart and soul into? It had to be some kind of mistake. But it was no mistake. As I was escorted out of my office in handcuffs, I heard the shocked whispers of my coworkers, accusing looks burning a hole in my back. The evidence against me was overwhelming: fake invoices, offshore accounts I knew nothing about, millions missing from our accounts. My unblemished reputation shattered in minutes. Later at home, I waited anxiously for Lisa and the kids to return. I dreaded telling them the news. The front door opened, my darling children laughing as they burst in. Then they saw my face and froze. "What's going on?" Lisa demanded. As calmly as I could, I broke the news. Her hand flew to her mouth as tears sprang to her eyes. "No, not you. Tell me this isn't happening." If only I could. Jake and Emma clung to their mother, their small faces twisted in confusion and fear. Then came the knock on the door that changed everything: police officers with a search warrant for my house. Our home was raided as we watched helplessly, my family sobbing, screaming for answers. But I had none to give. Hours later, after the police finally left with their boxes of evidence, Lisa turned on me with fire in her eyes. "How could you lie to me all these years? Steal money that was meant for charity? You betrayed us all." I pleaded my innocence, but my words fell on deaf ears. As Jake and Emma cowered behind their mother, staring at me like I was a stranger, I felt my heart shatter into tiny pieces. In the blink of an eye, I lost everything. My reputation, my job, my freedom, and worst of all, my family. As I languish here in this bleak cell, alone except for my thoughts of despair, I know this is only the beginning of the fight of my life to clear my name and get back all that I held dear. One thing keeps me clinging to hope: I am innocent. I must find a way to expose who truly orchestrated this elaborate plan to frame me. But where do I even start when the whole world seems determined to see me punished? My first night in jail was the longest and loneliest night of my life. Curled up on the thin mattress in my cold cell, I desperately racked my brain trying to figure out who could have orchestrated this intricate plot to frame me. As much as I didn't want to consider it, the evidence seemed to point to one person: Frank, my father-in-law. He was the founder of Helping Hands and the only other person besides me with that level of access and authority. Could family betrayal cut that deep? Morning came, along with my state-appointed lawyer, Sam Green. I knew right away this young, nervous guy in an ill-fitting suit was my only lifeline if I had any hope of fighting the false allegations against me. As he stumbled over his words explaining the charges, I interrupted him. "None of this is true, Mr. Green. My father-in-law is framing me to cover up the fact that he has been embezzling from the charity. We need to start investigating him and his financial records immediately." Sam gulped, loosening his tie. "With all due respect, Mr. Walsh, the evidence against you is compelling. Our best move is to negotiate a plea deal. Maybe if you return what's stolen." I slammed my fist down. "I took nothing. I'm being set up." Sam jumped, his papers scattering. After a painfully long silence, he finally spoke up. "Okay, I'm not supposed to say this, but maybe you have a point. Some things aren't adding up. If you really are innocent, we need to dig deeper." My heart lifted with the first glimmer of hope I'd felt in days. I knew convincing my family and the authorities of the truth would be nearly impossible, but maybe Sam could help me unravel Frank's web of deception. We hastily began investigating Frank and his ties to Helping Hands money in secret as the prosecution continued building their case against me. Weeks passed in a blur. Sam and I worked feverishly, following money trails across bogus businesses and offshore accounts. We uncovered shady connections of Frank's to money launderers, hackers, and known con artists. It was all circumstantial still, We needed hard evidence linking Frank directly to the theft to prove my innocence. During this time, my attempts to reconnect with my family were utter failures. Lisa refused to take my calls. When I tried visiting, she slammed the door in my face, screaming at me to stay away from her and the kids. I later learned she filed for divorce and put the house on the market. Each icy rejection whittled away at my spirit bit by bit. I was utterly alone in my fight, cast away by those I loved most. The only thing keeping me going was my burning desire to expose the truth. I could tell Frank was growing nervous and desperate. Sam reported being followed after our meetings by mysterious men in suits. Key witnesses in my case suddenly recanted their statements without explanation. Then late one night in the empty jail cafeteria, I found myself cornered by two inmates who made it clear I needed to stop pursuing Frank if I valued my life. Terrifying stuff, but still nothing compared to the shock I felt when I overheard guards gossiping that Frank had hired someone to get rid of Sam for good. I begged the guards to protect Sam, my only ally left. Sam dismissed the threat at first, but sure enough, a few days later I got a panicked call. Someone had broken into his home, destroying his files and leaving a blood-stained picture of his family. Sam was unnerved but refused to quit. We were closer than ever to a major breakthrough with a man named Raymond Lott. A disgruntled former accountant of Frank's, Lott hinted he had uncovered incriminating evidence of money being embezzled out of helping hands by Frank years back but was paid to keep silent. We were meeting Lott that very night, hoping he could deliver the proof we so desperately needed. Sam and I waited nervously in the dark parking garage for Lott to arrive. This skittish man was our only solid lead to prove Frank's guilt in the embezzlement scheme, but I had no idea if his promised evidence would be enough to exonerate me. A car pulled up and Lott emerged, face hidden under a baseball cap. My breath caught as he removed a manila envelope from his trunk. Sam and I exchanged tense nods as Lott approached, envelope clasped tightly under his arm. He glanced around anxiously before shoving the envelope at me. Proof that your father-in-law steals from orphans and widows. Bank statements, transaction records, even offshore accounts. Oh, and this. Lott pulled out a USB stick. Hours of recordings confirming Walsh bribed me to falsify records. This should help. My hand shook as I grasped the envelope, stunned by emotions flooding me. Shock, disbelief, elation. With this evidence, I could salvage my life. Sam grabbed the USB drive, eyes lighting up. If this is authentic, the truth will come out. We need to get this to authorities and file an emergency motion to admit new evidence. We turned to thank Lott, but he was gone. No time to ponder. We had to act fast before Frank's hounds returned to silence us. Sam and I ran towards the courthouse, the sun just peeking over the horizon. I allowed myself the spark of hope that my nightmare might end today. We were halfway up the courthouse steps when screeching tires halted us. A black SUV jumped the curb, for masked thugs leaping out, lead pipes and knives glinting. My heart seized. Frank wasn't going down without a fight. The envelope. Now, their leader bellowed. I shielded Sam and the evidence behind me. You'll have to kill me first. I spat as they converged. He chuckled darkly. Oh, don't worry. That's next. He raised his weapon and everything went black. I drifted awake, dazed, head pounding. Blurred figures stood over me, then sharp agony erupted in my ribs. The sounds of a vicious beating barely penetrated my fading consciousness before silence fell. I pried my swollen eyes open. My battered lawyer's body lay next to me, envelope gone. Sirens wailed in the distance, but it was too late. Our only proof destroyed or stolen. My spirit sank to frightening lows. We had come so close. As the world spun and went dark, one final defeated thought echoed. Was I destined to lose everything? My life, my love, my honor, with the bitter taste of injustice in my mouth? I awoke days later in the hospital, full of pain and despair. The beating had broken my ribs and spirit. Without that crucial evidence, it felt hopeless proving Frank framed me. The final salt in these deep wounds came hours later. Lisa arrived, face emotionless. I'm filing for full custody and moving across state where you can't hurt us anymore, she stated flatly. I can't even look you in the eye. You're a stranger to me now. Her words shredded my soul. I thrashed against the nurses holding me down as Lisa walked away without glancing back. The family I loved was gone forever. Raw anguish choked me. Over the next weeks, still hospitalized, my mental state grew dire. Haunted by Lisa's goodbye, I spiraled deep into depression's darkness. My dreams twisted with nightmares of Frank, always out of reach, his laughter echoing. Sam tried lifting my spirits to no avail. Even he was losing faith we could succeed against the mounting obstacles. I numbly authorized him to work on a plea deal. Clearly, there was no overcoming the conviction Frank had rigged against me. Then one dreary night, a strange dream jolted me awake. I saw Raymond Lott, warning me not to surrender. Jumping up, energy flooded my veins. If I forfeited now, evil would win. I suddenly knew what had to be done. As soon as I was discharged, Sam and I paid a visit to Lott. My hunch was right. He was the key to unlocking Frank's charade. Lott admitted he still had the USB drive containing Frank's incriminating confession. Nearly losing his life that day at the courthouse scared him into fleeing town, but he knew the truth had to come out. Armed with the resurrected evidence, we convinced the U.S. attorney to grant Lott immunity for his testimony. Hauled before a grand jury, Lott recounted in detail Frank's embezzlement scheme, the phony charities Frank ran to divert funds then launder through offshore accounts before pocketing millions. Lott's recorded evidence directly implicated Frank at last. Authorities had no choice but to reopen my case in light of this groundbreaking testimony. The trial was sensational. Frank took the stand, smug as ever, spinning lies even now. But the jury saw right through him. Lisa attended most days but refused to meet my pleading eyes. As we awaited the verdict, I shook with trepidation at the outcome. Surely truth would prevail. On the sole count of embezzlement, how do you find the defendant, David Walsh? Not guilty. The courtroom erupted. I nearly collapsed with relief as Sam and well-wishers mobbed me. My long nightmare was over. Justice was served. I glanced back to see Frank dragged off in handcuffs, his eyes burning with venomous hatred at me. Let him finally pay for his crimes. That night as I lay in bed in the hotel Sam had booked for me, exhausted but victorious, I heard a soft knock. I opened the door. Lisa stood before me, mascara running, the kids peeking shyly behind her. "Oh, David, I'm so sorry," she cried before running into my arms. "I should have trusted you. Can you ever forgive me?" Overwhelmed, all I could do was hold my precious family close as tears of reconciliation streamed down our smiling faces. The storm had passed at last. My name cleared. I now looked only to the future, rebuilding and healing, wiser and more grateful for this second chance at life, with the people I cherished most at my side where they belonged. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.